Welcome to the talk show Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields in academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. Media and public relations expert Brian Gross is today's guest. Brian talks about his vast experience in this field, as well as the rewarding work he has done with celebrities around the globe.
Media and public relations expert Brian Gross, welcome to Life Stories with Marc Hoberman.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
True pleasure. Brian, what exactly is public relations? It means so many different things to so many different people.
I mean, in basic form, it's dealing with the public, right? It's whatever it is, business entity, personal, whoever you are, whatever you're promoting, selling, fighting for, you have to garner the attention of the public, of the general masses. And so the public relations are the people in my position that sort of are the in-between, the go-to from said person, said company to the general public. And then you have media relations, which is that go between the media and said, person, entity, business, etc. So public and media relations, they've certainly been intertwined because you garner public attention through the media. And so they sort of have this sort of relationship per se.
At what point did you say, hey, I want to take this further, I want to dig deeper, I want this to be my career?
I would say I went to college, I came back, I worked on the Lollapalooza tour in '94. And then from there, did some more internships and just sort of felt my way around. But then took an assistant job at the record label I was at, Warner Brothers, and worked for the Reprise side, and realized I really wanted to keep going with this and climb the ladder. From there, there was an opportunity for the tour and regional publicity position at Elektra Records, and I even took that job before I was 21. Mm-hmm. So it was something that I just sort of kept going, see where it would take me. But I'm very fortunate. I fell in love with this career at an extremely young age, at 17. And so from, having the ability to live at home for a certain period of time, but then go out on my own, become independent, do all sorts of minuscule, writing for publications, reviewing live shows, interviewing bands. I even at one point helped deliver the papers for one of the outlets I worked for, that I was writing for, based in Hollywood. So it was a time in the early mid 90s of like constant hustle, and the friends I had were all hustling, and we were all just sort of feeling our way around in the music industry and in other industries, but mostly music, to figure out where our lives were going to go.
Well, you mentioned something minuscule, and I've interviewed so many people that have said this. There are no minuscule jobs, because you go to a movie and people don't realize, the actors are doing a great job, but the actors didn't write the script. And there's great lighting on the actor, but the actor's not doing the lighting. So all these minuscule things add up. So apropos of that, can you walk us through two things? First, explain what Lollapalooza is for those people and the viewers who don't know, and then what your behind the scenes work was for Lollapalooza.
Sure. Lollapalooza was started by the frontman of Jane's Addiction. It was originally started as a farewell tour for his band in the early 90s. And he would take artists, musicians and bands from all different genres. The first one was in 1991. And from there, he just sort of, with him and his partners and the band themselves, found that they had created sort of this festival that I think that he felt people were going to be really interested in. I joined, I had the opportunity to be the assistant to the publicist for the tour in 1994. So I wound up being in William Morris every day, 5-6 days a week, helping out with every aspect. So, I mean, I was setting up interviews in many cases. I was building press kits, which were the materials that we would collect from all the different bands that were on the tour for that summer. And the tour went around the country. Now you've got festivals sort of, Lollapalooza is now set up where it's every year in Chicago at the end of July. But in the 90s, it was a touring faction. You would have the bands, you would have your headliners, you'd have like 7 or 8 bands, and then you'd have like a second stage where different bands would play in different cities. You might even have local stuff. So everything that you've seen now that's sort of built into festivals in different cities around the world, you had this as a touring group for better part of over a decade. But again, it was started by Perry Farrell, and he just saw an opportunity and really dug into this. How can I take all these different genres of music, and you literally had every genre, and put them together where people would go and they could be introduced to bands they might not be familiar with. They would go for the bands they love, but also learn, see artists that they might never even gone to see before.
Well, it's so interesting because I'm in Pennsylvania now, and Music Fest is in Bethlehem. It's one of the world's largest musical festivals there are, and it's interesting the planning that has to go into this. But you mentioned 1994. It's funny. I saw something on Facebook because I always talk about remember the 70s, and many people think the 70s was 30 years ago. It's over 50 years ago. So 94, you're 1 year shy. Actually, a couple of months shy of it being 30 years ago. So you mentioned doing some of this stuff when you were before you were 21. So how did you keep that ego in check when you're doing such interesting things that are in the limelight for the public at such a young age?
I was taught when you learn things early in life, they stick with you. And I had my boss at Lollapalooza, one of the first things she ever said to me was, "Don't get starstruck." And so it stays with you the rest of your life. And so, yeah, you're around people and you're meeting people, you're around bands, and you're in awe in some, but you also learn they're working, you're working, you've got a job, they've got a job. And at the same time, you don't want to be just a fanboy. You want to be a part of this. You want to be a part of the machine that goes around, whether it's touring or recording or whatever it is. So I learned at an early age that this is work, this is a job, behave accordingly. Later on in life, you'd read quotes like Phil Jackson's, enjoy the moment, but act like you've been there before. And so, you over experiences, over time, sort of you build that sustainability of, okay, I know how to act, I know how to behave, but I can still enjoy what I'm witnessing in this moment at this time.
Well, that really resonates with me because especially before I started the show about 3 years ago, I went from, forget starstruck, I was star stalker. I have pictures behind me with some stars, some I met, just when they were in Broadway or doing something like that. Then I went from starstruck, and then I went to star respectful, because I do respect all the things that celebrities, and not just movie stars, athletes and politicians, just people out in the limelight. And just respectful of this is their craft. And the reason why you get starstruck is that it's in the craft in front of your face. But I love the behind the scenes action, for lack of a better word. So, this leads me to my next question, that on my show, I often talk about the story behind the glory. So what struggles did you have to overcome as you entered and then specialized in the field of entertainment?
I think you overcome your own mental fears. What am I doing? You're going to constantly question yourself where you're going in your life, especially very young. You have to make sacrifices. So to that aspect, you're just in a place of learning to put your head down and learning, and not easily, but overcoming sort of mental obstacles more than anything else. The other obstacles outside of, the four walls or your brain are really, you take them on one by one. So if a challenge comes up, how do you deal with it? And let's face it, life doesn't get easier, right? The challenges maybe change shape or change people, or change in your own mind. So, I look back at those challenges at the time, and I think we all do if we look at our challenges earlier in life, and not in all, but many cases, and sort of smile and go, wow, that was easy. And we thought that was going to be the hardest thing we'd have to deal with.
Right.
So for me at the time, it was just, as long as I had some money and had some sort of income, had a had a roof over my head, which I was fortunate. I wound up living with my best friend at the time, and he had a house, and I rented the guest room and was able to sort of function. Okay, I can do this. I can do this on my own. And going through life where you're just, I don't think FOMO existed as much then as it does now, where your fear of missing out. I didn't have that at all. It was, I'm in the right place. I'm doing what I should be doing, and I'm going to keep going and see where this takes me.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because when I was in California a year and a half, 2 years ago for the HAPA Awards, I could see some of the younger people were suffering from FOMO, because you could tell how exhausted they were. And you missed that one thing, I'm going to miss my big break. So I love the fact that, you have to grapple with the fear of missing out. You can only do what you can do. But I love the fact that you learn from your mistakes and any obstacles. And you mentioned that some of the obstacles are put in there by yourself personally anyway. So learning from those mistakes, I think, is huge.
Yeah.
I want to get into some of your clients now. You can name them or not name them, but who are some of the clients that we might know who worked with Mr. Brian Gross, and were all those interactions pleasant? And feel free to name drop.
Well, I mean, I was fortunate enough to work with Gene Simmons for about a year on a couple books that he had put out through a publisher. I worked with Sasha Grey on her film, The Girlfriend Experience, through Magnolia Pictures. And that was an incredible campaign, which included a trip to Tribeca Film Festival, where the film was showcased on, I believe, a Saturday night. And then I've worked with a plethora of companies. I've been fortunate enough to produce a few reality projects over the years. And so, but the thing is, I've had over 400 clients in a 24-year period. And what's funny about that is you wouldn't know maybe 380 of them, maybe 370, maybe 350. Okay. But there were people that hired me to help them accomplish what they were looking for. And hopefully we did it. And they moved on, and it allowed them to grow and build and do whatever it is that they were looking to do. I think there's an aspect in celebrity and entertainment public relations of having the most famous project or working the coolest thing. I wanted to work with people, and I've kept it simple. I want to work with people who want to work with me. So if you hire me, I'm going to try and do the best job I can. And if I do, you're going to tell other people. So I've strictly been word of mouth over these 3-4 decades. And I've focused on really just, if you hire me, let's go. Let's see what we can do together. Let's see if we can achieve the goals that you have, and go from there. So, one of my most recent clients, who's fairly well known, is Maitland Ward. She's an actress. And so we've had a lot of fun with projects, and she's been seen on TMZ numerous times, and different opportunities to where we're able to grow her brand and build her name up. And so it's just a lot of fun to take, whether it's small or something unknown or something very well known, and sort of, figure out the puzzle that we're trying to do.
Well, along those lines, you've been very successful. You've been in the game a long time. So I would ask that, where is your mind at? How do you bridge the gap? You have a difficult client, they're paying you money. How do you bridge the gap from, oh my goodness, when is this going to end, to this is a challenge and I'm going to use it to fuel me?
Yeah, I definitely avoid the when's this going to end aspect. You never want to do that. Certainly have that thought, but you never want to do it. Every client's different. Every client brings its own challenges. You're dealing with people, right? So every person is very different. You're dealing with some sort of entertainment and some sort of, project that is unique in its own way. So when you do have those moments, I practice yoga about 5 days a week. So in the evenings, I go to class, lay down on my mat, think about what the day brought, and try and clean it out. So I think the aspect that's most important is physical. It's getting out there, and whether it's a long walk, I've run 4 marathons in my life. There's different things that you need to do in order to clear your mind, whatever it is. For me, it's physical. For me, I've played sports, running, yoga. It's a need. Go to the gym. It's a need to clear out whatever those challenges are. Because if you sit and try to put it in your mind, it's not going to work. You've got to physically clear it out, in my opinion.
Great advice. You've been in business almost 25 years now, and there is a saying in life that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Does that hold true in public relations, or have things really changed?
Yeah, no, it does hold true, because at the end of the day, we still live in a place where masses are influenced by minimal. So something happens and a large quantity of people are affected by it. So in that way, that hasn't changed. The delivery obviously keeps changing. We don't use the word fax machine anymore. We don't use the term AOL chat room.
Right.
Friendster went away. So, MySpace went away. So the delivery methods always change, and you adjust accordingly with those, in my opinion.
So,
but yeah, for what it's worth, there are some days I wake up and it just feels like it's the first time I'm doing it back in 1993.
well, along those lines, how do you utilize social media in your business now?
All aspects. So, whether it's my clients using it, I use it to push my clients out. There's only so much time in the day. You got to be careful. You don't want to go down the wormholes and sort of wake up, 4 hours later and think what I've done. But it's very important. What social media has done is given the client direct access, which has positives and negatives. So it's sort of tailoring how we do that with our clients in order to make sure it's most effective for the results we're trying to get.
Excellent. And you have to roll with the times. So apropos of that, what advice would you give to young people who are interested in media relations, public relations?
I'm actually going to speak to a class tonight at LMU via Zoom, just like this. Mm-hmm. But my advice is always the same, of figure out, if you can figure out what you want to do, if you can figure out the field you want to work in, and you are willing to sacrifice, then you will have success. Mm-hmm. And if you put in the quote 10,000 hours. But, my advice is always simple in that regard, and it's never let me down as far as taking my own advice, simplifying things, working hard, putting in the extra time, sacrificing where need be. You will continue to grow and have success versus, getting into public relations, but wanting to be an actor, or wanting to do this, or maybe I'll do that, and just being all over the place. And before you know it, you're nowhere, because you've now wasted time not going after what you were hoping, what your plan was in the first place. And when things that are hard, you don't avoid them, you take them on. You're going to have challenges, you're going to have uncomfortable conversations, you're going to get into it with people, and you've got to be strong and deal with it accordingly. So with that in mind, you need to do a lot of internal searching as to, am I ready for what I'm about to take on?
Well, so what I'm hearing is certainly you have to stay focused, but you mentioned one word twice, which is sacrifice, or sacrificing. I think that especially in this industry, or any kind of business really, the young people today, they have different definitions of what they believe the word sacrifice is. So with no holds barred, can you walk us through the definition of what sacrifice means to you and in this business?
Yeah, sure. Let's say it's Friday night and you need to put time into work on a client, and there's a party down the street with all your friends. Sacrifice is not attending the party and putting in the time for the work to accomplish, to get the work done. You missed out on the party. I'm sorry. I've missed out on plenty of parties in my life, but I did it to better my career, to better my life, and to make sure that the task that I had to accomplish was done. So that's the most basic but important sort of definition on sacrifice.
Well, I think that a lot of that answer also stems from the first thing you said about FOMO, fear of missing out. Looks like you're the get rid of FOMO, doctor, because that's what you need to have a greater focus. Without giving us away, not giving away trade secrets, what is a day in the life of, it's not all glitz and glamour, some of it of course is, but what's a day in the life look like? What does a plan for someone look like? I'm sure that when you had 400 clients, but I'm very sure that you didn't treat any one of them exactly the same as the other. There's different niches, there's different needs, there's different struggles, different problems. So what is the kind of package, not offered, but how do you help get these people out there and promote them?
Sure. Well, I mean, the client comes to me with what their needs are, and we put together a plan that best fits. We request what we need from the client to build a folder out to, to get as much information that we need. We then go back and forth on what the announcements will be. And then we, on my end, start, once those are written and approved and everything else, get those announcements out. And certainly in this conversation right now, this isn't trade secrets or anything that isn't basic in regards to what you need to do to be successful and to, on a day-to-day basis, accomplish the goals set ahead of you. It's then at the same time, I'm constantly dealing with media, both pitching to them and helping media that have articles or TV programs or radio or podcasts that need stuff that I will hopefully be able to deliver to them from my clients. So it's a back and forth with media. It's a back and forth with clients. I'm a big zero inbox guy. So when we finish, I'll go, there'll be X amount of emails that I'll get to right away. If there's any calls to return, I get to those right away. People don't like being left in the dark. And so I'm very responsive, and I have found that to be one of the most successful things you can do in this industry is be responsive. Even if you don't have an answer, I don't have an answer, I'm working on it. They just want to know that. Email gets lost, phone calls get missed, so on and so forth. People's attention spans are nil. So, the ability to just say, hey, I'm on it goes a long way. And it's always the little things, I'm working on this. Here's your answer. Here's the follow-up questions. We're not ready yet in regard, whatever it is, it's getting back to those people, both on the client end and on the media end and on the third party end, to make them aware that I'm aware of what's going on. I'm here. We're working on it to accomplish what we need.
Well, I think that's golden advice. And before I thank you officially, I just want to say really quickly to the viewers, don't forget to watch us on E360 TV on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. EST on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire. Remember to follow us on social media. Life Stories with Marc Hoberman is on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and of course, our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Brian Gross, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. To contact Marc, email him at info@lifestorieswithmarchoberman.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman.